Practice 8, not overly excited today. I just did not a great day. On our Tuesdays we've been trying to take the shoulder pads off and just go in helmets, and that's always a little bit. I don't want to give them an excuse, but it's a little bit more difficult to sometimes the guys that aren't pros. They kind of relax a little bit too much, and I just felt like today, in particular on the offensive side of the ball, we were a little bit lax, and it showed as we went to team. There was a little bit more energy on the defense side of the ball, and the guys on the defense side of the ball played a little bit more. And again, that's usually what happens up and down in spring ball. Then the next day, hopefully it's the other way around, and then I can be mad at the other side of the ball, and it goes back and forth. But that's the competitive spirit you got to be able to have. But for us to continue to do this, where we have an idea of where we can go in just helmets on a Tuesday and uppers on a Thursday, and then like this past Saturday, we went like maybe 60 plays of live ball. A lot of you guys probably saw that. That's the idea. And so we got to be, there's a part of this, was kidding with these guys, the 79 through 83 group that's out here today that they hit for like 30 days in a row in spring ball with full pads and live tackling every single day, which I don't think is really true, but nonetheless it's a great story. We all understand that it's a different game, but we got to be able to be prepared for all of it. So our idea is to be a little bit lighter on Tuesday, ramp up on Thursday, and every Saturday go some live ball. But it gives us a chance to evaluate a hell of a lot more things than just the guys that know what they're doing and things like that. We get to evaluate on Tuesday what pros look like and how you can practice if you're not in pads, and can you ramp it up on a Thursday and take care of yourself and your body to be able to perform on a Saturday like what happens during the season.
I have to ask, unfortunately, something off the field, but Chris McIntosh departing from the athletic department.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
You called me on Sunday.
What does that just kind of do for you guys on a day-to-day basis? Obviously, there's the bigger pictures, but for the football program yourself, just
nothing right now. I mean, it's in a point. The biggest thing for us right now is obviously Marcus Sedbury and what he has to be able to do in his role. So there's some decisions, to be honest with you, that we're just going to have to make moving forward. Is what direction are we going to be able to go in that, based on what they're going to do and what he's going to do. So other than that, I think selfishly speaking, it's a decent time for us that we're locked in through all the recruiting and portal stuff for this season. Now, obviously, the following year, recruiting never stops. But at least we're in a good place where, hey, it's a focus on spring football. It's a focus on all these new guys and the guys that have been here developing this team and this camaraderie and how we can do things together. And so some of the external things at this point in time, it's kind of nice. It doesn't have a great effect on us on a daily basis.
When you're talking about his GM role and potentially having to make, are you thinking about bringing somebody else in?
Yeah, I mean, we just got to see what the whole timeline and what's going to happen. But we got to be prepared. That's the thing. As we all know, when you're in athletics, things don't wait. And every day there's an accelerated process in the athletic world that maybe doesn't exist in everybody else's world. And so we have to have a plan. We have to be prepared. And we got to be ready to be able to move based on what happens, and probably by the end of the spring ball.
Obviously, Marvin and Matt Young have played a lot of football, but some of those younger safeties that seem to be growing and making a lot of plays here this spring, just what's standing out to you with that group and some of their progress?
There's a greater depth there. I think there's some competitive spirit, and there's some guys being challenged. You throw Cairo into the back of that, where it was at corner and played a little bit of safety towards the end of the year, who has got a different talent and skill set in some ways based on playing corner for a while. So he challenges guys and makes sure guys feel that, hey, there aren't any solidified for sure positions. And then you add Carson Van Dinter and Ruff Dunn and some of those guys that have been here for a couple years. You're finally seeing that maturity and that growth. That it's a great thing. It puts pressure on the guys in that room to, like we talked about, come out here and perform every day. I think that's a part of being a pro. It's easier to be a pro when you have somebody in your room that's pushing you daily, right? I mean, that's the nature of competitive spirit and competition. It's a little harder. The intrinsic motivation is challenged a lot more if you don't have that depth and that true ability to say, hey, we're competing in spring ball to see who's going to play on Saturdays.
Going back to Chris, obviously he's the guy who hired you, spoke out.
Chris, does he play safety? Oh, okay. So you want to go backwards? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He was the guy who hired you, spoke out, and spoke out when things weren't going well last year. And back to just from a personal standpoint, his exit, how does that impact you? Do you think?
It's not easy to lose a friend, right? I mean, we've all been through it in the past, and so that's the difficult thing. That's the guy that you could visit with and sit down with. And not that I can't do that with Marcus and even some of the coaches on our staff, but anytime that there's things like that are changes that people were in your corner, it's always a little difficult. So disappointing, whatever you want to say, but so is life. And so you got to be able to move and continue to go on. And like I tell my wife, like I got to develop relationships with 50 some new guys that are in this program. So at least you have a little bit of time that you're busy, developing those relationships. But it's always one of those things that losing a friend is not easy.
How did you find out? And have you
I talked to
Chris?
him. I talked to him.
He
before
he
the
told
news
me. Came out.
He told me, yeah.
What was the timeline for that?
What's that?
What was the
Last
timeline
week.
for that?
Some point in time.
With Marcus, as you've worked with him the last few years, how do you think he's going to take on this challenge? Obviously, you're talking about the football part, but the interim AD, you've worked with a lot of ADs. Just how do you see kind of him taking on that role?
I think the great thing is he's been a lot of places. I think that's one of the unique things in coaching. So you try to compare coaches and guys in the athletic department. Like when you've been to other places and you've seen how things are done, you get a lot of experiences, good and bad, right? You take a lot of things in, you recognize how things are done. And I think that's one of the great things about Marcus. He's been in the NFL. He's been in several different spots, as an athletic director in the athletic role. So he's got a lot of great ideas. He's seen a lot of things very well done. Maybe some things he would never do. So I think he's got a real balance to what he has. For him too, this is an opportunity where he's got to make some decisions, to see which direction I think he wants to go as well.
The days of facility arm races are probably over, but what's just been the response of recruits when you show them the new facility you guys are building and what it's going to look like here?
We've been showing them for about 2.5 years, so it's pictures. But it's like when you can finally start to see. I think it's even important for the guys in this locker room. The older guys obviously might not get to see the whole thing or get to obviously take advantage of the whole thing. But even the guys within the locker room, everybody thinks it's all about recruiting. Well, how else do you show the young guys that there's a future, there's a progression here? Yes, there's obviously a different landscape in football, but if they don't see the progression from within, it's going to be harder and harder to keep people, right? I mean, like there's so much freedoms to guys to leaving places, that if they don't truly feel like there's a build from within, meaning facilities, meaning how they take care of people, all that stuff adds together. So I think it's a great opportunity for us, because I think we are in a place where we've got a core nucleus that we know is the strength of our program, and is going to be the future of our program. And so not only do we have to be able to take care of them, obviously win, because that cures a lot of things, they got to show the investment and visually be able to see how this thing is built.
Will McDonald's a guy, he's kind of working his way up the ranks on the outside. He was an interior guy last year. I guess I'm curious what was the intrigue about moving him, and what is he kind of showing you as he tries to work his way up the
Well, as you've seen us, we've tried to get a little bit bigger and a little bit longer, especially on the edges, and that's where Will has been able to say, okay, hey, I'm kind of a hybrid. I can play inside, but I also can play on the edge for some of the things we're asking our jacks to do. And then it's hard to, when we talk about being a pro, it's hard to not see guys that come out on a daily basis and do what they're supposed to do. I didn't say always make the plays. There's a developmental piece regardless if they're a five-star guy or a walk-on guy. And you've seen a development side of things that gives him an opportunity to play some different positions, which gives him more reps. And you can just see him growing in front of your own eyes. So he can do a lot of different things for us. He fills in a lot of different spots because of his intelligence. And he's going to have a couple roles this year.
Luke, it's clear alignment between an AD and a football coach are really important. We've certainly seen that here.
We're going back again.
Well, it is kind of the topic of the moment. So
no, it's not. The top of the moment is spring football, but go ahead.
Okay, well.
Did that make you lose your thought?
No, I'm good. Do you have any concern about what that alignment could look like in the future with whoever the next AD is and how it may impact your future here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing for us right now is to understand, you got to win. We're not beating around the bush. We're not changing anything. And I think that was probably as Mac and I sat and we talked about, I don't know it's any different, right? Yes, the relationship, yes, having a guy, if you know him really well and you could sit down and be friends with, but we all understand this is big boy ball and this is a big business, and it comes down to doing your job and doing it really well. And so there's many different ways of doing it. I can't say I've been a head coach for 35 years, and in the spots where I've been, there's been different relationships with each AD, and I think each one of them are unique. And so however it goes and whatever it is, what helps the relationship best of all, is having success on the field and having a good product. And so I don't think that's going to change.
Coach, Tough Borland is obviously overseeing a pretty stout position group. Just making the step up to the position coach title, just how have you seen that progression from him so far this spring?
Well, he's a great example of what this newer landscape, not just with the players, but with the coaches, gives you an opportunity to do. And we all talk about development, right, of young guys on your team and keeping guys here for 4 and 5 years, and you see a development of a football player. Well, to be honest with you, what has the NFL done the best job of is that, of taking young coaches, keeping them in their system and developing them. It's harder in college ball because a lot of those young guys don't have opportunities. They're GAs, and then if they become a quality control, they couldn't coach on the field. And Tuff's a prime example of a guy that, hey, he's got an opportunity, was a GA, earned the somewhat of his stripes and the respect to say, hey, let's give him a little bit of an opportunity to coach the backers with Coach Tress in there, and then the opportunity to kind of do it last year where you still had 11th coach or 10th coach, and you see a progression. A guy doesn't pick up and leave and go to wherever, a different league, a Division II, just so that they can develop and start coaching their own room. You're able to do it right in front of your own eyes, and I think that is a really good thing about where college football is in that aspect. And he's been a great benefit of that, and so have we.
We haven't seen Emerson Mandel the last couple of days. Do you have any concern?
No, Emerson's out for the rest of spring. He had a little surgery on his foot, and we'll be down for the rest of spring.
You expect him back though?
Yeah.
With John Kamara, he's a guy that you see the explosives, you see the athleticism. Just what does he do to maybe add some flexibility or change things on defense that you can do with him on the field?
It goes back to what we talked about a little bit as well with the safeties. It adds a competition. Right? I mean, a guy that's got a unique skill set to do a lot of different things, walking in the door. And so John has been able to do that. It's been able to create that competition in that room. The challenge is a little bit more on our plate, is on Tough Coach Borland and Coach Tress to start to figure out, okay, got a guy that can do a lot of different things. He's still a young guy and developing, playing this game and in our system. So where do we kind of get him into so that he can truly kind of develop himself a little bit more as he learns everything? But he gives us some flexibility. We just got to make sure we don't use too much of that flexibility. We don't allow him to get really, really good at a couple spots.
I've read stuff about other teams that during the offseason they've had like icebreaker sessions, non-football meetings, things generally specifically designed for players to get to know one another, particularly in this era when you have so many newcomers. Is that anything y'all have done, or when it's
we do it all the time? We do it every week. We don't. Sometimes it's not quite as set up. It's a part of our off-season program where we expect guys to be out and hanging out with each other. We expect them to take their time in the spring, and then into the summer we'll do it with coaches having different groups over to their house. A lot of things like that, but I think that the most important thing is making sure that they understand who we are, what we're about inside these walls. The growth of that is what happens a lot more after the spring and into the summer, but that never stops, right? I mean, these guys don't understand where your office is and that you're open all the time. I mean, we've started doing those little media things with me interviewing guys, which I'm not trying to take Matt's job by any means. I don't enjoy, but the only reason I'm doing it is just to get another opportunity to spend 20, 25 minutes with some newcomers, some guys that I find out a lot just doing some of those little interviews with them, and see personalities in a different way, because that's not something I get a chance to see on an everyday basis.
You talked about Kevin Haywood's return, I think on the first day of spring camp here. Just what have you seen in these 8 practices, the growth of him? And it seems like one of the maybe most dependable guys on that line right now.
Well, I mean, there's still a lot to go, but I know this, and I said it in our little leadership meeting yesterday. I think I've said it a few times. Like, I really like, I say the vibe, but the nature, the culture of the relationship, the growth in that O-line room. Even though there's a lot of new guys, I've been impressed. I've been impressed with, and Kevin's a big part of that, right? I mean, Kevin wasn't able to play last year, but he was a guy that had a good role in making sure that he was a part of everything we did. He traveled to every game we went to. He was a guy that we said, hey, we understand you're the future. You're not just a future of playing. You're a future of being a part of leading and helping us get this room back to where it needs to be. Good?
Thank you.
Right.